All right, welcome back to Adult Brain, another experimental live read. I'm Graham, one of the narrators. We're going to be finishing off Chapter 6, Other Legends of the Conflagration. That's in part 3, The Legends of Ragnarok, the Age of Fire and Gravel. This is written by Ignatius Donnelly back in 1883. Really interesting. So you can go back to the live tab and see the reading of part 1, The Drift, part 2, The Comet, and now we're in part 3, The Legends. So this is kind of where it gets fun and exciting, less scientific and more about myths and legends, but also a little bit of a slower read with all the pronunciations and stuff like that. So bear with me. This is just like an experiment. I'm editing it as I go, so it's rough and raw. This is how the sausage is made. It's not AI. We are humans here in Adult Brain. So welcome, thanks, smash the like and subscribe and all that stuff. Pass it on to your friends. Bringing books of ancient wisdom and stuff to you guys for free here on YouTube. So I'm going to finish. I'm going to start halfway through here. Let me share the screen. It was too long of a chapter to finish yesterday. Yesterday was long already. So I'm starting about Peru here in Peru. So here we go. Oops. Why did that happen? Let me just close that and restart it. Check the record levels at 54. That should be okay. In Peru, that ancient land of mysterious civilization, that brother of Egypt and Babylon, looking out through the twilight of time upon the silent waters of the Pacific, waiting in its isolation for the world once more to come to it. In this strange land, we find the following legend. Ere sun and moon was made, Viracocha, the White One, rose from the bosom of Lake Titicaca and presided over the erection of those wondrous cities, whose ruins still dot its islands and western shores, and whose history is totally lost in the night of time. He constructed the sun and moon and created the inhabitants of the earth. These latter attacked him with murderous intent. The comet assailed the sun, but scorning such unequal contest, he manifested his power by hurling the lightning on the hillsides and consuming the forests, whereupon the creatures he had created humbled themselves before him. One of Viracocha's names was Atachuchu. He civilized the Peruvians, taught them arts and agriculture and religion. They called him the teacher of all things. He came from the caste. Oh, that can't be right. Let me just expand this out here. They called him the teacher of all things. Can make that bigger. He must have come from the east. He came from the east and disappeared in the Western Ocean. 4 civilizers followed him who emerged from the cave Pakaran Tampu, the house of birth. These 4 brothers were also called Viracochas, white men. Here we have the White One coming from the east, hurling his lightning upon the earth and causing a conflagration. And afterwards, civilized men emerged from a cave. They were white men, and it is to these cave-born men that Peru owed its first civilization. Here is another and a more amplified version of the Peruvian legend. The Peruvians believed in a god called Atachuchu, already referred to, the creator of heaven and earth and the maker of all things. From him caused the first... From him came the first man, Namasuri. This first mortal is mixed up with the events that seem to refer to the Age of Fire. He descended to the earth and there seduced the sister of certain Guachimines. Let me figure out how to pronounce that. Guachimines. I had it set up here. Let's see. I just want to make sure of something. 44. Okay. Guachiminas. 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 Maybe I shouldn't show you guys that. My assistant over there. Maybe I should bring him over here to this other one. Guachiminas. 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 He descended to the earth and there seduced his sister of certain Guachiminas, rayless ones, or darklings. That is to say, certain powers of darkness, who then possessed it. For this crime they destroyed him. That is to say, the powers of darkness destroyed the light, but not forever. Their sister proved pregnant and died in her labor, giving birth to 2 eggs, the sun and moon. From these emerged the 2 brothers, Apocatequil and from these. It's funny, eh? Like I practiced these 2 because I don't want to delay too much. I mean, I'm always going to miss some, but even though I've practiced them and I know what these things usually sound like, it's almost impossible to get it on the fly. So, Apocatequil. Where did that go? Let's see. Apocatequil. Apocatequil, and Pigarao. Oh boy. I'm going to keep this open and I'm not looking at the screen now. I'm looking at the pronunciations. From these emerged the 2 brothers, Apocatequil, and Pigarajo. From these emerged the 2 brothers, Apocatequil and Pigarajo. Then followed the same great battle to which we have so many references in the legends, and which always ends, as in the case of Cain and Abel, in one brother slaughtering the other. In this case, Apocatequil was... See, I already went back to the Apocatequil. Apocatequil. It's that like stress on the second to last syllable. In this case, Apocatequil. In this case, Apocatequil was the more powerful. By touching the corpse of his mother, the sun, he brought her to life. He drove off and slew the Guacamenes. Guacamenes. Let me go back and see this one. Guachaminas. By touching the corpse. Guachaminas. Slew the Guachaminas. Guachaminas. By touching the corpse of his mother, the sun, he brought her to life. He drove off and slew the Guachaminas, the powers of darkness, and directed the Atachuchu, released the race of Indians from the soil by turning it up with a golden spade. That is to say, he dug them out from the cave in which they were buried. All right, here we go. Check. For this reason, they adored him as their maker. He it was, they thought. For this reason, they adored him as their maker. He it was, they thought, who produced the thunder and the lightning by hurling stones with his sling. And the thunderbolts that fall, they said, are his children. Few villages were willing to be without one or more of these. They were in appearance small, round, smooth stones, but had the admirable properties of securing fertility to the fields, protecting from lightning, etc. I shift the scene again, or rather group together the legends of 3 different localities. I quote the Taculis. I quote the Taculis, already referred to, of the North Pacific coast, the Urucaris. All right, you have to check that one too. Urucaras. 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 Pacific coast. The Urucaras. Whoops. Pacific coast. The Takalis. The Takulis already referred to of the North Pacific coast, the Urucaras of the Bolivian Cordilleras. Oh boy, okay. The Takulis already referred to of the North Pacific coast, the Urucaras of the Bolivian Cordilleras, and the Mocobi of the Paraguay, each and all attribute the destruction of the world to a general conflagration which swept over the earth, consuming everything living except a few who took refuge in a deep cave. You gotta keep the other screen open there. Botocudos. The Botocudos of Brazil believed that the world was once destroyed by the moon falling upon it. Let us shift the scene again northward. There was once, according to the Ojibwe legends, a boy. The sun burned and spoiled his bird skin coat, and he swore that he would have vengeance. Check. And he swore that he would have vengeance. He persuaded his sister to make him a noose of her own hair. He fixed it just where the sun would strike the land as it rose above the earth's disk. And sure enough, he caught the sun and held it fast so that it did not rise. The animals who ruled the earth were immediately put into great commotion. They had no light. They called a council to debate upon the matter and to appoint someone to go and cut the cord, for this was a very hazardous enterprise, as the rays of the sun would burn up whoever came so near. At last the dormouse undertook it, for at this time the dormouse was the largest animal in the world. The mastodon? When it stood up, it looked like a mountain. When it got to the place where the sun was snared, its back began to smoke and burn up with the intensity of the heat, and the top of its carcass was reduced to enormous heaps of ashes. It succeeded, however, in cutting the cord with its teeth and freeing the sun, but it was reduced to a very small size, and has remained so ever since. This seems to be a reminiscence of the destruction of the great mammalia. Check. The enormous heaps of ashes may represent the vast deposits of clay dust. Among the Wyandots, a story was told in the 17th century of a boy whose father was killed and eaten by a bear, and his mother by the great hare. He was small, but of prodigious strength. He climbed a tree like Jack and the Beanstalk until he reached heaven. He set his snares for game, but when he got up at night to look at them, he found everything on fire. His sister told him he had caught the sun unawares, and when the boy, Checkabek, went to see it, so it was. But he dared not go near enough to let him out. But by chance he found a little mouse and blew upon her. But by chance he found a little mouse and blew upon her until she grew up so big, again the mastodon, that she could set the sun free, and he went on his way. But while he was held in the snare, day failed down here on earth. It was the age of darkness. The Dog Rib Indians, far in the northwest of America, near the Esquimalt, have a similar story. Chakabek becomes Chapowie. He too climbs a tree, but it is in pursuit of a squirrel until he reaches heaven. He set a snare made of his sister's hair and caught the sun. The sky was instantly darkened. Chapowie's family said to him, "You must have done something wrong when you were aloft, for we no longer enjoy the light of day." "I have," replied he, "but it was unintentionally." Chapuis sent a number of animals to cut the snare, but the intense heat reduced them all to ashes. At last, the ground mole, working in the earth, cut the snare but lost its sight, and its nose and teeth have ever since been brown as if burnt. The natives of Siberia represented the mastodon as a great mole burrowing in the earth and casting up ridges of earth. The sight of the sun killed him. These sun-catching legends date back to a time when the races of the earth had not yet separated. Hence, we find the same story in almost the same words in Polynesia and America. Maui is the Polynesian god of the ancient days. He concluded, as did Tawats, that the days were too short. He wanted the sun to slow up, but it would not. So he proceeded to catch it in a noose like the Ojibwe boy and the Wyandotte youth. The manufacture of the noose, we are told, led to the discovery of the art of rope making. He took his brothers with him. He armed himself like Samson with a jawbone, but instead of the jawbone of an ass, he with he took his I'm gonna have to go back to here. Took his brother with him. Interesting, all these stories the exact same, almost from all over the world. He took his brothers with him. He armed himself like Samson with a jawbone, but instead of the jawbone of an ass, he, with much better taste, selected the jawbone of his mistress. She may have been a lady of fine conversational powers. They traveled far like Tawats, even to the very edge of the place where the sun rises. There he set his noose. The sun came and put his head and forepaws into it. Then the brothers pulled the ropes tight, and Maui gave him a great whipping with the jawbone. He screamed and roared. They held him there for a long time, the age of darkness, and at last they let him go. And weak from his wounds, obscured by clouds, he crawls slowly along his path. Here the jaw of the wolf Fenris, which reached from heaven to earth. Here the jaw of the wolf Fenris. Here the jaw of the wolf Fenris. Having trouble with that one. Here the jaw of the wolf Fenris, which reached from heaven to earth. I can't say that one. Here the jaw of the wolf Fenris, which reached from earth to heaven in the Scandinavian legends, becomes a veritable jawbone which beats and ruins the sun. It is a curious fact that the sun in this Polynesian legend is Ra, precisely the same as the name of the god. Okay. Let's see here. It is a curious fact. I got to reposition and get more comfortable here. Starting to make some mistakes. Check. It is a curious fact that the sun in this Polynesian legend is Ra, precisely the same as the name of the god of the sun in Egypt, while in Hindustan the sun god is Rama. In another Polynesian legend, we read of a character who was satisfied with nothing. Even pudding would not content him, and this unconscionable fellow worried his family out of all heart with his new ways and ideas. He represents a progressive, inventive race. He was building a great house, but the days were too short. So, like Maui, he determined to catch the sun in nets and ropes, but the sun went on. At last, he succeeded. He caught him. The good man then had the time to finish his house, but the sun cried and cried until the island of Save was nearly drowned. And these myths of the sun being tied by a cord are, strange to say, found even in Europe. The legend tells us check. The legends tell us in North Germany, the townsmen of Bolsum sit up in their church tower and hold the sun by a cable all day long, taking care of it at night and letting it up again in the morning. In Reynard the Fox, the day is bound with a rope, and its bounds in excuse me. In Reynard the Fox, the day is bound with a rope, and its bonds only allow it to come slowly on. The Peruvian Inca say the sun is like a tied beast who goes ever round and round in the same track. That is to say, they recognize that he is not a god, but the servant of God. Verily, the bands that knit the races of the earth together are wonderful indeed, and they radiate, as I shall try to show, from one spot of the earth's surface alike to Polynesia, Europe, and America. Let us change the scene again to the neighborhood of the Aztecs. We are told of two youths. We are told of two youths. We are told of two youths, the ancestors of the Mixtec chiefs, who separated, each going his own way to conquer lands for himself. The braver of the two, coming to the vicinity of Tilantongo, check. The braver of the two, coming to the vicinity of Tilantongo, armed with buckler and bow, was much vexed and oppressed by the ardent rays of the sun, which he took to be the lord of that district, striving to prevent his entrance therein. Then the young man strung his bow and advanced his buckler before him, and drew shafts from his quiver. He shot these against the great light, even till the going down of the same. Then he took possession of all that land, seeing that he had grievously wounded the sun, and forced him to hide behind the mountains. Upon this story is founded the lordship of the Caciques of Mixteca, and upon their descent from the mighty archer, their ancestor. Even to this day, the chiefs of the Mixtecs blazon as their arms a plumed chief with a bow. Go up as we pause it to another, get a full page there. Even to this day, the chiefs of the Mixtecs blazon as their arms a plumed chief with bow and arrows and shield, and the sun in front of him setting behind gray clouds. Even to this day, the chiefs of the Mixtecs blazon as their arms a plumed chief with bow and arrows and shield, and the sun in front of him setting behind gray clouds. Are these two young men, one of whom attacks and injures the sun, the two wolves of the Gothic legends, the two comets who devoured the sun and moon? And did the Mixtec barbarians, in their vanity, claim descent from these monstrous creatures of the sky? Why not, when the historical heroes of antiquity trace their pedigree back to the gods, and the rulers of Peru, Egypt, and China pretended to be the lineal offspring of the sun? And they're not... And they're not wanting those, even in Europe, who yet believe the blood... Okay. And there are not wanting those, even in Europe, who yet believe that the blood royal differs in some of its constituents from the blood of the common people. What? Will the aspiring blood of Lancaster sink in the ground? In the Aztec legends, there were 4 ages, or suns, as they were termed. The first terminated, according to Gama, in the destruction of the people of the world by hunger. The second ended in a destruction by winds. In the third, the human race was swept away by fire. And the fourth, destruction was by water. Okay, sorry about that. And in the Hindu legends, we find the same series of great cycles or ages. One of the Shastas tells that the human race has been destroyed 4 times. First by water, secondly by winds, thirdly the earth swallowed them, and lastly fire consumed them. I come now to a most extraordinary record. In the prayer of the Aztecs to the great god Tezcatlipoca, the supreme invisible god, a prayer offered up in time of pestilence, we have the most remarkable references to the destruction of the people by stones and fire. It would almost seem as if this great prayer, noble and sublime in its language, was first poured out in the very midst of the age of fire, wrung from the human heart by the most appalling calamity that ever overtook the race, and that it was transmitted from age to age as the hymns of the Vedas and the prayers of the Hebrews have been preserved for thousands of years down to our own times, when it was carefully transcribed by a ministry. Oh, right at the end. Right at the end. Okay. Gotta go back. And that it was transmitted by the missionary. It's those bloody dashes in these old documents. I like how the newer ones have all the full words on a page. It's a little easier. Check, check. And that it was transmitted from age to age as the hymns of the Vedas and the prayers of the Hebrews have been preserved for thousands of years down to our own times, when it was carefully transcribed by a missionary priest. It is as follows: O mighty Lord, under whose wing we find defense and shelter, thou art invisible and impalpable even as night and the air. How can I, that am so mean and worthless, dare to appear before thy majesty? Stuttering with rude lips I speak. Check. Check. Stuttering and with rude lips I speak. Ungainly is the manner of my speech, as one leaping among furrows, as one advancing unevenly. For all this I fear to raise thine anger, and to provoke instead of appeasing thee. Nevertheless, thou wilt do unto me as may please thee. Nevertheless, thou wilt do unto me as may please thee. O Lord, thou hast held it good to forsake us in these days, according to the counsel that thou hast, as well in heaven as in Hades. Alas for us, in that thine anger and indignation has descended upon us in these days. Alas, in that the many and grievous afflictions of thy wrath have overgone and swallowed us up, coming down even as stones, spears, and arrows upon the wretches that inhabit the earth. This is the sore pestilence with which we are afflicted and almost destroyed. O valiant and all-powerful Lord, the common people are almost made of an end of O valiant and all-powerful Lord, the common people are almost made an end of and destroyed. A great destruction and the ruin and pestilence already make in this nation. And what is most pitiful of all, the little children that are innocent and understanding nothing, only to play with pebbles and to heap up little mounds of earth. They too die, broken and dashed to pieces as against stones and a wall. A thing very pitiful and grievous to be seen. For there remain of them not even those in the cradles, nor those that could not walk or speak. Ah, Lord, how all things become confounded, of young and old and of men and women, there remains neither branch nor root. Thy nation and thy people and thy wealth are leveled down and destroyed. O our Lord, protector of all, most valiant and most kind, what is this? Thine anger and thy indignation, does it glory or delight in hurling the stone and arrow and spear? The fire of the pestilence, made exceedingly hot, is upon thy nation, as in fire in a hut, burning and smoking, leaving nothing upright or sound. The grinders of thy teeth, the falling stones, are employed in thy bitter whips upon the miserable of thy people, who have become lean and of little substance, even as hollow green cane. Yeah, what dost thou now? What doest thou now? Yeah. What? Slide it up a little bit. Check, check. Yeah, what doest thou now, O Lord, most strong, compassionate, invisible, and impalpable, whose will all things obey, and whose disposal depends the rule of the world, to whom all are subject? What in thine divine breast hast thou decreed? Peradventure, hast thou altogether forsaken thy nation and thy people? Hast thou verily determined that it will utterly perish, and that there be no more memory of it in the world, that the peopled place become a wooded hill and a wilderness of stones? Excuse me. Peradventure, wilt thou permit that the temples and the places of prayer and the altars built for thy service be razed and destroyed, and no memory of them left? Is it indeed possible that thy wrath and punishment and vexed indignation are altogether implacable, and will go on to the end of our destruction? Is it already fixed in thy divine counsel that there is to be no mercy nor pity for us, until the arrows of thy fury are spent to our utter perdition? And will go on to the end of our destruction? Is it already fixed? Check. Gonna redo that one. Is it already fixed in thy divine counsel? Whoops. I moved that right in the middle. Is it already fixed in thy divine counsel that there is to be no mercy nor pity for us, until the arrows of thy fury are spent to our utter perdition and destruction? Is it possible that this lash and chastisement is not given for our correction and amendment, but only for our total destruction and obliteration? That the sun shall never more shine upon us, but that we must remain in perpetual darkness and silence? That never more wilt thou look upon us with eyes of mercy, neither little nor much? Wilt thou after this fashion destroy the wretched sick that cannot find rest, nor turn from side to side, whose mouth and teeth are filled with earth and scurf? Is it check? It is a sore thing to tell how we are all in darkness, having none understanding nor sense to watch for or aid one another. We are all as a drunken check. We are all as drunken. We are all as drunken and without understanding, without hope of any aid. Already the little children perish of hunger, for there is none to give them food, nor drink, nor consolation, nor caress. None to give the breast to them that suck, for their fathers and mothers have died and left them orphans, suffering for the sins of their fathers. What a graphic picture is all this of the remnant of a civilized religious race hiding in some deep cavern in darkness, their friends slaughtered by the million by the falling stones, coming like arrows and spears and the pestilence of poisonous gases. Their food supplies scanty, they themselves horrified, awestruck, despairing, fearing that they would never again see the light, that this dreadful day was the end of the human race and of the world itself. And one of them, perhaps a priest, certainly a great man, wrought up to eloquence through the darkness and the terror, puts up this pitiful and pathetic cry to the supreme God for mercy, for protection, for deliverance from the awful visitation. How wonderful to think that the priesthood of the Aztecs have through the ages preserved to us down to this day this cavern hymn, one of the most ancient of the utterances of the heart of man extant on the earth, and have preserved it long after the real meaning of its words was lost to them. The prayer continues. O our Lord, all-powerful, full of mercy, our refuge, though indeed thine anger and indignation, thine arrows and stones have sorely hurt this poor people, let it be as a father or a mother that rebukes children, pulling their ears, pinching their arms, whipping them with nettles, pouring chill water upon them, all being done that they may amend their puerility and childishness. Thy chastisement and indignation have lorded and prevailed over these thy servants, over this poor people, even as rain falling upon the trees and the green canes, being touched of the wind, drops also upon those that are below. O most compassionate Lord, thou knowest that the common folk are as children, that being whipped thy cry. O most compassionate Lord. I'll scroll up here and start from a fresh top. Check. O most compassionate Lord, thou knowest that the common folk are as children, that being whipped thy. Why do I keep saying thy there? O most compassionate Lord, thou knowest that the common folk are as children that being whipped they cry and sob and repent of what they have done. Peradventure, already these poor people by reason of their chastisement weep, sigh, blame, and murmur against themselves. In thy presence they blame and bear witness against their bad deeds, and punish themselves therefore. Our Lord, most compassionate, pitiful, noble, and precious, let a time be given the people to repent. Let the let the past chastisement suffice. Let it end here, to begin again if the reform endure not. Pardon and overlook the sins of the people. Cause thine anger and thy resentment to cease. Repress it again within thy breast, that it destroy no further. Let it rest there. Let it cease. For a surety none let it rest there. Let it cease. Let it cease. For of a surety none can avoid death nor escape to any place. We owe tribute to death, and all that live in the world are vassals thereof. This tribute shall every man pay with his life. None shall avoid from following death, for it is thy messenger, what hour soever it may be sent, hungering and thirsting always to devour all that are in the world, and so powerful that none shall escape. Then indeed shall every man be judged according to his deeds. O most pitiful Lord, at least take pity and have mercy upon the children that are in the cradles, upon those that cannot walk. Have mercy also, O Lord, upon the poor and very miserable, who have nothing to eat, nor to cover themselves withal, nor a place to sleep, who do not know what thing a happy day is, whose day pass altogether in pain, affliction, and sadness. Then this, were it not better, O Lord, if thou shouldst forget to have mercy upon the soldiers and upon the men of war, whom thou wilt have some need of time. Behold, it is better to die in war and go to serve food and drink in the house of the sun than to die in this pestilence and descend to Hades. O most strong Lord, protector of all, Lord of the earth, governor of the world, and universal master, let the sport and satisfaction thou hast already taken in this past punishment suffice. Make an end of the smoke and fog of thy resentment. Quench also the burning and destroying fire of thine anger. Let serenity come and clearness. Let the small birds of thy people begin to sing and to approach the sun. Give them quiet weather, so that they may cause their voices to reach thy highness, and thou mayest know them. Gotta redo that one. To highness, approach the sun. Give them quiet weather, so that give them quiet weather, so that they may cause their voices to reach thy highness, and thou mayest know them. Now it may be doubted by some whether this most extraordinary supplication could have come down from the glacial age, but it must be remembered that it may have been many times repeated in the deep cavern before the terror fled down. But it must be But it must be remembered that it may have been many times repeated in the deep cavern before the terror fled from the souls of the desolate fragment of the race, and once established as a religious prayer associated with such dreadful events. Who would dare to change a word of it? Who would dare, among ourselves, to alter a syllable of the Lord's Prayer? Even though Christianity should endure for 10,000 years upon the face of the earth, even though the art of writing were lost and civilization itself had perished, it would pass unchanged from mouth to mouth and from generation to generation, crystallized into imperishable diamonds of thought by the conservative power of the religious instinct. There can be no doubt of the authenticity of this and the other ancient prayers to Tezcatlipoca, which I shall quote hereafter. I repeat what H. H. Bancroft says in a footnote in his great work. Father Bernardino de Sahagún, a Spanish Franciscan, was one of the first preachers sent to Mexico, where he was much employed in the instruction of the native youth, working for the most part in the province of Texcoco. While there, in the city of Tipoc- Tipiopoco, 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 while there, city of Tepiopoco, Tepio, while there in the city of Tepiopoco in the latter part of the 16th century, he began the work best known to us as the Historia General de la Cosa de Nueva España, from which the above prayers have been taken. It would be hard to imagine a work of such a character constructed after a better fashion of working than his. Gathering the principal natives of the town in which he carried on his labors, he induced them to appoint him a number of persons, the most learned and experienced in the things of which he proposed to write. These learned Mexicans being collected, Father Sahagun, Sahagun, check. These learned Mexicans being collected, Father Sahagun was accustomed to get them to paint down in their native fashion the various legends, details of history and mythology, and so on, that he wanted. At the foot of the said pictures, these learned Mexicans wrote out the explanations of the same in the Mexican tongue, and this explanation the Father Sahagun translated into Spanish. That translation purports to be what we now read as the Historia General. Sahagun was a good and holy man who was doubtless inspired of God in the face of much opposition and many doubts to perpetuate for the benefit of the race these wonderful testimonials of man's existence, condition, opinions, and feelings in the last great cataclysm which shook the whole world and nearly destroyed it. Religions may perish, the name of the deity may change with race and time and tongue, but he can never despise such noble, exalted, eloquent appeals from the hearts of millions of men, repeated through thousands of generations, as these Aztec prayers have been, whether addressed to Tezcatlipoca, Zeus, Jove, Jehovah, or God. They pass alike direct from the heart of the creature to the heart of the Creator. They are the threads that tie together matter and spirit. In conclusion, let me recapitulate. 1. The original surface rocks underneath the drift are, as we have seen, decomposed and changed for varying depths of from. I better redo that. The original. Check. The original surface rocks underneath the drift are, we have seen, decomposed and changed for varying depths of from 1 to 100 feet by fire. They are metamorphosed and their metallic constituents vaporized out of them by heat. 2. Only tremendous heat could have lifted the water out of the seas into clouds and formed the age of snow and floods evidenced by the secondary drift. 3. The traditions of the following races tell us that the earth was once swept by a great conflagration. A. The ancient Britons, as narrated in the mythology of the Druids. B. The ancient Greeks, as told by Hesiod. C. The ancient Scandinavians, as appears in the Elder Edda and Younger Edda. D. The ancient Romans, as narrated by Ovid. E. The ancient Toltecs of Central America, as told in their sacred books. F. F. The ancient Aztecs of Mexico, as transcribed by Fray de Olmos. G. The ancient Persians, as recorded in the Zendavesta. H. The ancient Hindus, as told in their sacred books. I. The Tahoe Indians of California, as appears by their living traditions. Also by the legends of J. The Tupi Indians of Brazil. K, the Takulis of British America. L, the Ute Indians of California and Utah. M, the Peruvians. N, the Yucares of the Bolivian Cordilleras. O, the Macobi of Paraguay. P, the Butocoros. P, the Botocudos of Brazil. Q, the Ojibwe Indians of the United States. R, the Wyandot Indians of the United States. And S, lastly, the Dog Rib Indians of British Columbia. We must concede that these legends of a world-embracing conflagration represent a race remembrance of a great fact, or that they are a colossal falsehood, an invention of man. And the latter, then, that invention and falsehood must have been concocted at a time when the ancestors of the Greeks, Romans, Hindus, Persians, Goths, Toltecs, Aztecs, Peruvians, and the Indians of Brazil, the United States, the west coast of South America, and the northwestern extremity of North America, and the Polynesians, who have kindred traditions, all dwelt together as one people, alike in language and alike in color of their hair, eyes, and skin. At that time, therefore, all the widely separated regions now inhabited by these races must have been without human inhabitants. The race must have been a mere handful, and dwelling in one spot. What vast lapses of times must have been required before mankind slowly overflowed to these remote regions of the earth, and changed into these various races speaking such diverse tongues. And if we take the ground that this universal tradition of a world conflagration was an invention, a falsehood, then we must conclude that this handful of men, before they dispersed, in the very infancy of the world, shared in the propagation of a prodigious lie, and religiously perpetuated it for tens of thousands of years. And then the question arises, how did they hit upon a lie that accords so completely with the revelations of science? They possessed no great public works in that infant age, which would penetrate through hundreds of feet of debris and lay bare the decomposed rocks beneath. Therefore, they did not make a theory to suit an observed fact. And how did mankind come to be reduced to a handful? If men grew, in the first instance, out of bestial forms, mindless and speechless, they would have propagated and covered the world as did the bear and the wolf. But after they had passed this stage and had so far developed as to be human in speech and brain, some cause reduced them again to a handful. What was it? Something, say these legends, some fiery object, some blazing beast or serpent, which appeared in the heavens, which filled the world with conflagrations, and which destroyed the human race, except a remnant, who saved themselves in caverns or in the water. And from this seed, this handful, mankind again replenished the earth and spread gradually to all the continents and the islands of the sea. All right. That's the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7, Legends of the Cave Life, will be tomorrow. I don't know if it'll be more than that chapter. We'll see how long it is, but that's about it for today. Thank you, everyone. Smash and like. We have this documented now, this video recorded that we can sort of take screenshots from when we make a proper video. And it'll be a little bit different. And thanks for coming along for this ride of Ragnarok, this book that needs more attention and more. It's been very underrated over the last 150 years. Thank you all very much. Love you. See you tomorrow.